Get rid of the toxic things. Look at where you're spending time just gossiping or texting or hanging out at the coffee shop or checking news feeds multiple times during the day or checking your Facebook account. For me, time is for one thing. It's to create great memories that make our life worth living, that then become our legacy.
Hey team, we've got another great episode coming your way, but before we get into it, I have a quick ask for you. If you've been getting value from this show and our amazing guests, please just take 1 minute to leave a rating and review. It helps more folks find the show, which then helps us attract epic guests who then provide mad value to you. So you see, it's really all for your own benefit. But seriously, it would mean the world to me. So thank you and enjoy the show. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Millennial Mastermind, the personal development community for entrepreneurial millennials looking for the tools, tactics, and inspiration to create a business and a life of abundance. Today, I am very excited to welcome Stephen Griffith to the Mastermind. Stephen is a leading expert on the connection between time, productivity, and performance. He is a nationally recognized author, speaker, researcher, and performance expert. And for over 25 years, he has been a trusted advisor and coach to successful CEOs, entrepreneurs, executives, professional and Olympic athletes, entertainment professionals, and organizations at large, helping them perform at their highest levels. His upcoming book, The Time Cleanse, a proven system to eliminate wasted time, realize your full potential, and reinvest in what matters most, is dedicated to providing a strategic and effective approach to changing our relationship with time to allow you to maximize your energy, focus, and performance. And Stephen, I would be amiss in this introduction not to mention that you are also a former boxer and that your nickname was in fact the Velvet Hammer, which is so badass that we could probably spend the entire episode talking about that. And you're doing it in Chicago, my former hometown, nonetheless. But welcome to the show,
Brad. Thanks for that. Thanks for that and that great intro. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would just probably spend the entire episode thinking about if I didn't ask you what, as your time as a boxer, earned you that title, because I just have to know.
Well, Brent, it's really funny. It's funny for me. That name actually did not come from boxing. It came from coaching. And
oh, really?
Yeah. And so, soon into my, coaching career, my professional coaching career, people were like, man, you're really compassionate and empathetic, but man, you really just say it how it is. And nice. So there's this balance of, holding somebody, in their potential and in a positive, safe environment, and then just being really direct so people can shift and make the changes they need. So that's where the velvet, the hammer with velvet on it. That's where it came from.
Nice. Well, I'm expecting then for that direct feedback and advice in this episode, and I think that a lot of us need it in this topic that we're really going to be talking about and covering, and that's time management and productivity. And so just to kind of kick things off, how did you really become an expert in this space?
Well, about 5 years ago. So I've been coaching entrepreneurs, executives, professional athletes, entertainment people for a good amount of time. But about 5 years ago, Brad, out of nowhere, every one of my clients was having the same roadblock, and they used the same words. I don't have enough time. And I actually started realizing I was feeling the same way. And I was seeing how stressed out, how fatigued they were, how they were battling time. And I made a decision literally 5 years ago that I wanted to figure out how to get more time back and perform with it. And that's in that research, that's where I realized we were using old, outdated technology, if you will, for time management. Time management doesn't work anymore. Time management worked when our phone was attached to the wall by a cord. So that was the shift. That was the understanding. And after years of research from traveling, from the ancient wisdom back to Thailand and Japan to look at mindfulness and meditation to the laboratories of neuroscientists, we created Time Cleanse.
I love it. So let's dive into it. What is Time Cleanse all about? And kind of at a high level, what does that system look like?
Sure. At that 40,000 feet, I like how you prep that question. When we look at it, it's really about how to do more, get more, and be more by changing your relationship with time to start getting back your time and then learning how to perform with it. So it ultimately starts with this, identifying what you're committed to. You know, I've been saying this for a long time is you can't have everything, but you can have what matters the most. And it's really important to identify, okay, what am I committed to having? And so in the process, identifying that personally or professionally, and then the cleanse itself then identifies in multiple areas of your life, technology, people, places, business interactions, the things you own, mental thoughts. And through the process, we write everything we do with our time down in those categories. And then we determine through the time cleanse question, is this contributing or contaminating to my happiness and success? And then you either keep it or you eliminate it. That's the quick version of it. That's the fast and furious time cleanse, but that's how we get the time back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Are you familiar with the book, The One Thing?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I love when I hear different ideas in this personal development space where it starts to click that I hear things that resonate and they both work together, or multiple things, because that's when I get an indication of, okay, there's a few different processes or a few different really experts talking about their own processes, but they point towards the same thing. And I love that question that you mentioned, the time cleanse question of, is this contributing or towards your success or contaminating it? And that really helps, as well as what you also said, you can't have everything, but you can have what matters most. And it's really focusing on those most important things. And just when those things align, I realize, okay, we're definitely on the right path with this topic, because it makes a lot of sense. So how do you help your clients then identify what does matter most to them, or what is the right thing to focus on? Because I think that's one thing that I've always personally struggled with is, here's 10 things that need to get done. Okay, sure, I can eliminate this maybe to the 5 that really need to get done, but the other ones still are very important. So how do you work through that with your clients?
Sure. At a global level, the first thing that I do is look at, what are their values? What's important to them in life? And actually in the book, we go through a values process of ranking your top 5 values. And then the values determine where you put your time, energy, and focus. Time, energy, and focus. And that's at more of a global level. And then specifically, depending on where a client wants to work, if it's personal or professional, we really identify what's really most important right now. And, through self-reflection, one of the great things about the time cleanse, it gives the unique opportunity to stop and be present and be mindful. You'll be hearing me use the word mindful today. And in that stopping, we actually connect to our gifts and talents and what's really important. One of the big problems today, Brad, is we're in a 24/7 connection, distraction, multitasking, stimulating, seeking. And we're on this wheel and we're letting the outside world give us the choices. We're not creating them. Our phone is giving us a menu with pre-choices. It's telling us how to drive, what to look at, our feeds, the news. So by stopping for a moment and saying, okay, am I doing the right thing in the right way with my time? It gives us a unique opportunity to have choice and get back in the driver's seat.
So what are some of those common pitfalls then? Because obviously you're totally right. You have your phone on you at all times. Most times not even in your pocket. It's sitting right next to you and shooting alerts at you and really distracting you. Is there any low-hanging fruit that we can just eliminate to start to get better at protecting our time?
Oh, absolutely. And you alluded to it right here. So one of the things that I talk about in the book, and I go through a process in it, and I'm going to share with your listeners right now, is to time cleanse your phone. So the phone, there's an interesting piece of research I came across in writing, is that they monitored a group of people for a week to see what their interaction with their phone was. And they found after a week, the average person touched, clicked, swiped, looked, and felt their phone over 2,600 times in a day. I'm going to say that again.
That's ridiculous.
2,600 times. And that was the average, Brad, average. So this tip right here will save you hundreds of hours a year. I've seen it personally. I've coached it 1,000 times. So first thing on the phone is you grayscale it. So the phone is designed to be in Technicolor to grab our attention. So you can grayscale the phone into black and white. You can do it on any smartphone. Secondly, remove all notifications. Anything that's flashing, dinging, binging, jumping on that screen, just shut it off. And then the third thing is move the apps that pop up when you turn your phone on to the second screen. And here's why. When you do these three things, these are the quick, fast, and furious three, you become in charge of your phone, not your phone in charge of you. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience how many times in the past before I did this, I'd go to my phone, I'm going, I'm going to go look something up. And all of a sudden I see a text or an email or a notification and I'm down in the rabbit hole. And of those 2,600 interactions with the phone, each one of those cost us time. So those three things right there immediately put you in charge of your phone.
I love that. And so now you have me pulling up my own phone, which is probably the worst practice during an interview I can do. But just thinking about it, so when you're moving, to get really deep in the weeds and tactical, when you're moving those apps over to the second screen, is that all apps or just the ones that get notifications that could potentially pull your attention away when you take a look at it?
So great question. Really your personal preference, right? Like, so some people actually remove their email, Facebook. I did a big training with Union Bank last week and I had multiple people tell me they took Facebook and other apps off, right? So I have Facebook on my phone, but it's on the second screen. So it really depends on how much you want to cleanse. I mean, it's really a personal preference on your lifestyle, what type of personality you have. I want it all off to the side. I don't want to see anything. But that's me. But other people may say, hey, I want to keep this app here. I want to have this right here. But the main thing is that when you come to your phone, you're choosing. The phone's not choosing for you.
I really like that. I like that a lot. And we'll probably be making that change right when we get off here. So are there any other, so obviously phone's a big bucket. Are there any other large buckets that you have a process for the time cleanse that people can go ahead and take action on pretty much right away to start freeing up some mental space for themselves?
Well, let's take this concept a little bit further because the tech part is a huge chunk and it's not just tech, but I'll jump on some other areas as well, is that all your devices, right? What I just said about notifications. If there's one thing you can do in your life is turn your notifications off on your devices. And here's the reason why. And it goes to the philosophy that I teach in the book called timefulness. And timefulness is an advancement for mindfulness. And mindfulness, for your listeners that may or may not know, is just being present in the moment, aware of yourself internally, the world around you, with a sense of curiosity without judgment. So that keeps us fully engaged. And when we're mindful, we have the highest cognitive power, the greatest creativity, we have the greatest resilience of stress, and it puts us in our full capacity. So these tips and tricks that and tools that I'm suggesting is allowing that to happen. It's allowing that to happen and to be focused, because not every hour is the same, Brad. Not every hour is the same. You can 5x, 10x your productivity when you start doing some of the tools and tactics that I'm talking about, or you can be multitasking and be operating at 5%. So eliminating the things that are coming at you, really, really simple. And then also, what I call interval training. It's back from my old athletic coaching days, and setting periods of time where everything's shut off. You're hyper focused, with what Napoleon Hill says, that definiteness of purpose on one thing. And when you do that and you maximize that energy, I did this writing the book. I was doing intervals of 55 minutes of work, 7 minutes of rest, 3 or 4 of those in a row, and then a bigger rest period. And my productivity skyrocketed. And it's the same for anyone out there that's working on a goal, something that's big in their life, or even something that's small. It's work hard, rest, and come back at it. And the last part here, Brad, is when we started with this interview off with you, is this: get rid of the toxic things. Look at where you're spending time just gossiping or texting or hanging out at the coffee shop or checking news feeds multiple times during the day or checking your Facebook account. For me, time is for one thing. It's to create great memories that make our life worth living, that then become our legacy.
That's powerful. With that interval training, do you have recommended time breakdowns in terms of how much time we're spending doing really focused, dedicated work versus taking those breaks or switching over something like email that might be a little bit more distracting and all over the place?
Yeah. So a couple things on that. So 55-7 is something that I've found to work really well. So if you can focus for that 55 minutes and rest for 7, that's a good longer interval. The other one is 25-5, 25 minutes, 5 minutes rest. Now here's the key to this. The rest is rest. Get up from your desk, go for a walk. Don't jump on social media. Don't jump on, looking at some online shopping. Unplug. Let your body reconnect, get some water, a little meditation, do a little walk, and then come back. Now, you're only going to do 2, 3, 4 of these a day. So it's full on. And then you can go back to the other work style that you might have, but just implementing a few of these is really important because this will maximize. And here's the thing. It's amazing how much more capacity we actually have once we start doing this. I got up to 10 intervals a day at the peak of my writing. Now, that's after months of doing it. But that's like doing 3 times of work in one day.
So it really is like physical training that you have to work yourself up to it. It's not something you can just start right off the bat. You have to kind of train yourself up to that point to be able to do that kind of work. Correct. I mean, genetically, some of us have or don't have. I wouldn't say I'm genetically gifted that way. We've got to train ourselves. And, the thing that many people aren't understanding is that, we're on this planet to connect. We're social beings. We want to connect with each other. But this distraction is keeping us for more deep connection and meaningful relationships. And so as we continue to practice to be more present, the quality of our life and our happiness increases. So the last kind of tactical bucket I want to ask you about is, and I had mentioned, is email. Because I know this is an area that a lot of times what we hear is to time block a certain time when you're looking at email, and keep it into that window. So I wanted to get kind of your theory on it, and maybe we can kind of dive into that.
Sure. Email is probably one of the, if not the biggest challenges for people today. So the old time management theories of inbox zero, you may have heard of, get your inbox to zero, is a horrible idea today, because the inbox just keeps going. There's just 10 years ago that worked. So now it's dedicating once a day, twice, 3 times a day, whatever it's going to be, and then set a timer. One of my biggest tips is I have an egg timer. It's a timer that, it's it's got an electronic thing on it that is not my phone. So I'll time things and making sure that I'm staying on track with my day. So timing, okay, I'm going to check my email at 8 or 12 or 4 for 15 minutes. And if you have a job where you've got to be on it more frequently, that's fine. If you got to every hour be on it, set your timer 5 minutes. And things that you can't handle then, put later in the day, at the end of the day when it's not your prime performance hours.
Yeah. And you already covered there one of my objections or questions, which is going to be for people who, for example, in my job, I have clients who may have urgent requests that you really need to be able to see pretty quickly just to be able to respond to. But setting it as maybe an hourly email check-in could alleviate that problem for sure.
Exactly. And once again, we want to adjust all these things. None of these are hard and fast rules. We want to engage them in our lifestyle and our own personality. But one of the bigger parts here I want to mention is for all of these tools and tactics, it's shifting from the mindset of trying to manage time and getting in the mindset of performing with time. And the big shift there, Brad, is this. Old time management theory was based on you had an hour, you had a bunch of stuff to get done in it. And what that does is create time pressure. And it makes time something outside of you that you're fighting. And so when we look at time performance, we realize, first of all, time comes from us. We are time. And that we can expand time by the principles and practices that I'm talking about. But we're inviting a positive relationship with time because it comes from us and we want to use it for us. That's a big difference of what's happening now with technology, is that the mindset of you want to perform with time instead of trying to manage it.
I want to stay on that topic because I like that shift in perception and that it's sort of a mindset that you approach time with. Do you get resistance from your clients at all when they're trying to make that shift, or is there any tactical advice you might have for listeners who really like that concept and want to go further in how to actually implement that as their perception with time?
Sure. Great question. Right. So one of the things that can be challenging is what I just said takes away the excuse of time for not doing, being, and having. I'm going to say that again. It takes away the excuse of time for not doing, being, and having. And what I mean by that is this. We've been conditioned to use time as an excuse. I hear many of my clients, I used to do the same thing. If time allows, if my schedule allows. And I simply ask, as I asked myself, who is time? If the excuse is if time allows, well, who is that? And as funny as this may sound, and I lived this for many years, I was living the same way. I never asked that. I am time. So it can be challenging for sure because many people are operating as a victim to time. But when we own it and say, wait a second, it comes from me. It's actually abundant. It can be expanded by being present and being focused on what's important and knowing that, it is something that is renewable. It changes the mindset. I often say this, imagine if you woke up and you thought food was scarce. How would you feel? Would you be more hungry? Would you worry about what your next meal is? It's the same thing with time. But when we just own it, control it, and just invite it to work for us, to be an ally, it changes the game.
Yeah, I love that. It also reminds me too of, I read an article about the concept of people responding when you ask how they're doing with the response of, oh, I'm just so busy. And it's such a frequent thing. And it's something I am totally guilty of too. People say, oh, how's everything going? I'm just like, oh, it's just so busy. But there's a few negative consequences of that. And it reinforces in your own mind and your own belief that you don't have the time you need to get things done. But it also closes doors because if somebody may have an opportunity for you, or say you're at work and there may be something that that you don't even know is going on. So just an opportunity that you didn't foresee, you might get overlooked for that because people think that you're too busy to take that on. And it's just a really interesting concept that I think ties in well with what you're talking about.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when we're operating like we're so busy, we're not operating with a vibration of abundance, prosperity. It's saying, whoa, that person's maxed out. They don't have time for me. They don't have time for my needs, because everyone's walking around going, me, me, me. I mean, that's just how this is how people are designed, right? So when they're seeing that or hearing that, it's not reflecting the abundance of you personally or your business or the opportunity. So that's a great insight.
So a lot of the listeners to this podcast are folks who are entrepreneurial millennials who are looking to either build a business. They may have a side hustle. They may be looking into starting a side hustle or starting something without necessarily giving up the security or the income of their current job just yet. But one of the pressures or one of the difficulties with that is the time constraint, because you're spending your working hours, which oftentimes with commutes and getting ready and things like that ends up being 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So do you have advice for us who are trying to build something outside of what we're currently doing and really feel that constriction of time just based on this concept of doing multiple things, meaning a job and some sort of side project at the same time?
Sure. Really common. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that want to open other business and expand businesses and opportunities, or write books or create movements, nonprofits, et cetera. So this is a really great challenge people are having that I deal with on a regular basis. So a couple of things we want to look at to begin with is when we look at the time cleanse process. So when people go through the time cleanse process, the average is 10 hours back a week. Most people getting 20 or more hours back. So we want to look, first of all, at the toxic things that are no longer serving us that we can get rid of or delay doing. So that's my first statement. And your listeners can do a simple cleanse of just writing everything down that they do in a day and then just deciding, can I let that go? Can I let that go right now? So we want to reclaim the time. But there's a bunch of windows in a day that most people don't think about. Okay. And first of all, it's your lunch break. If you have an hour lunch, cut it in half or get yourself a protein shake, meal replacement, and drink your lunch. You just got 60 to 45 or 30 minutes back right there. It's a very overlooked period. But the biggest place that people overlook is the window right after work. So I talk about your day, preparing, performing, and then recovering. So at the end of the day, say you finish work at 6 o'clock and you're going to go to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock. So you've got 5 hours there. That first 2 to 3 hours after work are prime investment hours. And so you have to set up your day that you move right into what you're passionate about. Now think about that. 2 or 3 hours a day times a year. That's almost 1,000 hours of investment in your hustle. But even before that is asking yourself this deep question. And I know you're familiar with this, is why do you want it? Connecting to that deep why, because the why is the thing that will engage your time there and energy and pull you forward when you're tired or it's the end of the day. But lunchtime and that window right after work are prime areas to invest. Now, if you're an early bird and you can get up 30 minutes to 60 minutes early, you start combining this, you've got a lot of hours, but you've got to calendar it and make that commitment. And what I call, Brad, is a non-negotiable. There's not a lot of things in my life that I have in this bucket and when I coach it, but when you put it in there, no matter what, you're doing it. So if it's committing to 2 hours a day or an hour a day or 30 minutes a day, you absolutely commit that, you track it. And then out of David Goggins' playbook, at the end of the day, I like to have my clients look in the mirror with their calendar in front of them and ask themselves, did I follow through with my commitments? And if they didn't, this is where the velvet hammer comes in. Be brutally honest. Why not? The brutal honesty is what keeps us going forward. And I told my clients a couple of weeks ago how a pizza beat me. And I've been on my nutrition program, been on camera more for the book and stuff. And my mom sent me a deep dish, Lou Melanati's. You probably know that, Brad.
Oh boy, you're talking my love language now.
So she said it to me, they dry ice it. And I go, I'm going to have a slice and then I'm going to have like chicken breast, right? So I threw that thing and baked it, came out. I had that first slice. I'm like, man, that was awesome. And then I had that second slice. And then 2,000 calories later, that pizza was gone. and here's the reality. I was weak. Not like, oh, it was a good pizza. Oh, I was weak. The pizza beat me. Now, the velvet hammer style is this. Own it. Own it. Because when you own it, you can shift it. And so I owned it. Next day I got back on the program, but I didn't make any excuses about it. It's just like your time. You have to take control and own your time. And stop making excuses. I talk about traps in the book. One of the traps is explaining why. The other trap is I've always done it this way. The other trap is someday. all of those are just excuses. So one of the things that I want people to realize is it can be challenging, to be brutally honest, but it's actually the path to freedom.
So a concept of time management that a lot of us have heard of is time blocking. Is that the same sort of method that you use within the time cleanse and within your program?
Yeah, very, very similar. I call it clustering, and time blocking and clustering are connected. So it's scheduling everything. So absolutely, if you want to perform at your highest level, you want to schedule everything. But one of the things that I add and have utilized is clustering similar activities. So if you're going to do emails, just do emails. If you're going to do sales calls, just do sales calls. And here's why. The brain creates efficiencies. So if you're focused on writing reports, following up with clients, and doing the similar activity, you're going to get a 2 or 3x return on your performance in those hours. And it's connected with blocking the time in your calendar, making sure you have that time.
That makes sense. And so the final question I'll ask here is that there's probably a lot that you've learned during the process of researching for the book, working with your clients, going all the way back through your career. Is there one piece of advice that if you could go back in time and give to your younger self, maybe in your mid-20s or before really embarking on kind of the next chapter, whether that's coaching or whatever it might have been at that point in your life, that you would give to yourself at that stage in the game?
Great question. Don't wait. Don't wait. Time is ticking. And when you jump, you'll figure out a way to land and to go for it. And that's, I pretty much have done what I wanted to, but I've delayed in parts of my life, Brad. There's places where I was afraid, or I felt like I wasn't good enough, or I needed something else to happen. It was all an illusion. We're more than we think we are. And so my advice to my old self and to myself today is, and it's the phrase I use, is there's only one time and it's right now. And there's only one direction and it's forward.
Yes. Don't wait. I like that a lot. So people, I know that I'm going to be reading the book. I'm excited for it. I'm excited about a lot of the things we talked about. And I believe some of our listeners will be as well. So is there somewhere that they can go to go deeper into the process and really learn more about the time cleanse? And then also, where can they find out more about the book?
Oh, absolutely, Brad. So I've got something great for your listeners. I've got my top 10 performance tips that's downloadable, and you can get that at stephengriffith.com/millennial. It's connected to you. And then also, people that pre-order the book or order the book, I'm giving away a free masterclass. It's 8 videos. It takes you step by step through the time cleanse process. You get a nice little manual with that. But that's my giving back for people that get the book. I want people to rescue time right now. Same address at stephengriffith.com/millennial. And, pick those things up and get back your time, man. It's your most valuable thing.
I love it. That's awesome. We'll have that all linked up in the show notes as well for anybody who's driving and didn't have a chance to write that down. But Stephen, thank you very much for coming on the show today, sharing your time with us, which is clearly very valuable. Wishing you the best of luck with this upcoming book launch. And what day will that be that the book's out, just so people know, because I know it's coming up.
Sure. On the 12th of March, it'll be available on Amazon and the bookstores on the 22nd.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. We're blessed to have you here today.
Thank you.